Hey, what's up guys? Michael from Mr. Chaos YGO here, and today I'm going to be bringing you my second place Yu-Gi-Oh! Day 2021 Nekroz Dogmatika profile. Now, before we get into the profile, first I'd like to make a couple of announcements. First, apologizing for absence of uploads on the channel. I'm sure if you've been subscribed to us for a while, you will have seen that we haven't uploaded for a bit. And that was mainly just due to the fact that we've had some big changes in our lifestyles. I've just graduated and been hunting for a new job. Thomas has got his studies he's been busy with, and he's also been transitioning more towards playing Flesh and Blood. So if you're a fan of that card game, stick around with us because we do have an exciting announcement coming along. And Keegan unfortunately had part of his collection stolen, so he's just trying to get back into the game at the moment. But moving on to that, you are here for Nekroz Dogmatika, and that's why I'm here to deliver. So we'll start with the profile. For the Nekroz portion of the deck, I'm playing one Nekroz Overdrive. This is the one that came out in Ghost in the Past, and is basically a monster negate by tributing a monster from your hand or field. Trish, well, if you're watching this profile, you probably know what the Nekroz cards do, but I'll summarize them quickly as I go through them, just in case you're unfamiliar. So all the Nekroz monsters have an ability where they can discard themselves from the hand to do something, or do something when they're on the field. So Trish, her discard effect is that when a Nekroz monster you control is targeted by a card effect, you can discard Trish to negate the activation. Velk, when your opponent declares an attack, you can discard Velk and banish a Nekroz card from grave to negate the attack and in the battle phase. Bryonic, he's most important one, discard him, search for a Nekroz monster. Unicorn, discard to add back from a Nekroz card from grave to hand, but is the main one you want to be summoning. Klaus, discard to search for a Nekroz spell or trap, and on field can also target extra deck monsters, make their attack 0, and do that until the end of the turn. Shirat, necessary to play as a one-off, mainly just because of the fact that if you're retro summoning a bigger Nekroz, or any Nekroz in fact, Shirat contribute himself as the whole requirement, because the bigger Nekrozes in Velk, Trish, and Aredva can't be ritual summoned using a monster with the same level as them. You've got to use like multiple monsters that add up to the level, but Shirat allows you to bypass that. And then on for the ritual spells, one mirror, one cycle, and two kaleidoscope. In this deck, kaleidoscope really outshines itself. It's got some amazing synergies that I'll get into and show you. I'd almost want to play 3 of this, but I think 2 is a safer ratio because you still need to... you don't want to be opening multiples of Nekroz ritual spells. That's when your hand's brick. Same as with Shirat as well. You only really want to play one of them. And I think that 2 kaleidoscope, 1 cycle, 1 mirror is a good ratio. Cycle allows you to ritual stuff and summon it back from the graveyard, and mirror allows you to banish Nekrozes from graveyard as ritual fodder. So these two just help in the late, as the game gets into a bit more of a grind, and all of the ritual spells themselves can banish themselves from the graveyard and a Nekroz monster if you control no monsters to add a ritual spell. Well, specifically a Nekroz spell or trap card, but Nekroz don't actually have any trap cards at the moment. And then onto the second part of the deck, the Dogmatic engine. So we have 3 Ecclesia, only 1 Starlight unfortunately, but budget restrictions. She's good as the best normal summon in the deck because Nekroz itself doesn't have one. I'm not playing like Manju or anything like that because I just found that I didn't really have a desire to need to play him because the Dogmatic engine and Ecclesia's normal summon allows you to make up for a lot of the differences that having that normal summon, say a pure Nekroz deck, would give you. So I played 3 of those for consistency, and because we've got lots of search targets. 1 Fleur-de-Lis, 1 Maximus. Maximus is really, really, really good in this deck, mainly because once we get into the extra deck, I'll show you some of the stuff that you'll be dumping on a turn-by-turn basis, and you can just really see how well he shines. I'd almost consider bumping this to 2, but I didn't test this deck too much before the event. There's definitely stuff that I'll change, I'll get into. But the safest bet that I found to go off the bat was just to play 1-on-1 and see how it worked out. Because there are some weaknesses to this deck. Because the whole strategy is using Nekroz of Unicorn, which is basically skill drain for the extra deck willies on field, and then protecting him with Trish and Velk, and the Dogmatic engine makes up for the differences. But the reason why I chose to play this solely is because the deck got a huge boost with Lightning Overdrive, and that is in White Knight of Dogmatika. Most of you probably don't know what this card does, but what it allows you to do is it can be ritual summon with a Dogmatika ritual spell, Dogmatikalamity, similar sort of thing, that if you summon this, using this, you're locked out of the extra deck, but you know, that's Dogmatika, we know what it does. But what White Knight says is if your opponent activates a card or effect anywhere at any stage except during the damage step, so that is during both players' turns, you can look at your extra deck and dump a card from that to the graveyard, then look at their extra deck and dump a card from that to the graveyard, and then White Knight gains half the attack of both the monsters sent. The attack boost doesn't really come up because usually summon this in defense, but what it allows you to do is during both players' turns, you generate a lot of advantage by, well, there's multiple things you can do. I'll get to the good stuff in the extra deck, but one thing this is really good for doing first, same as Max, is it allows you to figure out what your opponent's playing. You know, if you get to look at their extra deck and choose what, because you get to choose what you send from theirs. So if you're playing against like, you know, Drytron or Tri-Brigade, where they have targets they want to send to the, from the extra to the grave, you know, you can take out key pieces like maybe Mubat or Fafnir, that sort of thing. That's another reason why I was reluctant to play 2 Maximus just off the bat too, is because against Drytron and Tri-Brigade specifically, Maximus is really bad because you generate advantage, but they also generate advantage as well, which can help them break your board. And moving on to the rest of the Dogmatika cards. Dogmatikalamity. So the ritual spell for Dogmatika, similar to Nekroz Kaleidoscope, it allows you to ritual summon a ritual monster by sending one monster from the extra deck to the graveyard at the same level. White Knight's level 8, that's the same level as Titanic-Lad. So if you ritual summon White Knight, you don't have to worry about getting access to Ecclesia, because you can send Titanic-Lad and special summon her and search for Elise in the end phase. Or alternatively, you could just send like Cyframe Lord Omega if you've already used Titanic-Lad. Then 3 Nadir Servant. This card is insane in this deck, and the reasoning for that is because White Knight has 500 attack, which coincidentally is less attack than Herald of the Arclight, which is 600. So Nadir Servant on its own allows you to send Herald and search this directly because it has less attack. Then Herald effect, when it's sent to graveyard, allows you to add the ritual spell for White Knight. The ritual spell then sends Titanic-Lad, which during the end phase gets you Ecclesia and Fleur. So just off Nadir alone, with no other cards, no discards, nothing, Nadir will end you with White Knight on field, Ecclesia on field, and then a search for either Fleur de Lis, Maximus, or Punishment, just on its own, which is really, really good. And if your opponent activates a card or effect, say they might try and, you know, I don't know, DD Crow Titanic-Lad before the end phase or something, White Knight can start punishing them by sending stuff and figuring out. So that's the Dogmatic engine. And then on to the rest of the deck, which is just staples, which there are a lot. I chose to run for hand traps, I chose to just run the Gamma package because it was all I had room for. But I chose to do this because this deck is really, really weak to draw on Lockbird, because, you know, Nekroz Embryonic searches, Claws searches, Nadir searches, moving on with more spells, Rhoda searches, Preparation of Rites searches, Pot of Prosperity searches. So there's a lot of cards in this deck that search. They could, you know, you could get ashed or drolled, or if it's Nadir, get belled. They all do their searches without you having any monsters on board, which is where Gamma's quite strong. I found at the event that Gamma was quite weak because nobody at my locals was playing Droll, and I was more running into things like Impermanence or Crow or Meister, which are a lot better this format. And at the point that those cards are being played, either Gamma can't stop them if it's Imperm, or I already control monsters, so it's a bit dead. But this did have some of its uses going second. I mean, it is objectively, quote-unquote, the best hand trap because it negates and destroys something. But given the format at the moment is a little graveyard heavy, Meister and Crow, I think, are actually the strongest hand traps of the format. And then for the last 2 cards in the deck, one Called by the Grave, again, more hand trap protection, and just Imperial Order. I had a slot for a 40th card, and just figured that if I'm going first, because that's what this deck's built to do, some of the decks that this Nekroz Dogmatika has weak matchups against, which are your control decks, Imperial Order will help blow them out. Because to touch on something for a second, that is one thing I did find, is that this deck, against more meta decks that are really extra deck reliant, Nekroz Dogmatika does really well, because Nekroz of Unicorn can just shut down an entire deck, and then Trish and Velk and the Dogmatic engine can just protect that Unicorn so it sticks. But if they're playing something maybe more rogue, or something that doesn't use the extra deck, or like a stun strategy, this deck kind of struggles. It doesn't really have much to put up, because you can't easily get a Readvar up first turn, because you need to get access to a ritual spell and Nekroz a Clausulus and search a Readvar. And even then, you know, some of these stun decks don't really use monsters that much. Like, I ended up losing the event to Gren Marju. That was probably about the single worst matchup this deck could have, because I just didn't have ways to deal with Gren Marju easily, and eventually he ended up top decking Gren Marju with no cards 2 turns in a row, because I just didn't have lethal. But we'll get to the changes of the deck later on. For the extra deck, Link Rebo, Nightmare Phoenix, Unicorn, Blackluster Soldier Link, Exterio, and Dragon Master Knight. The reason these 6 I've here have pulled out first is because these are prosperity targets. You will virtually never need to go into these, but they're here as an option. Link Rebo is just there for a Dino matchup. Unicorn and Phoenix are just generic stuff that you can link off the Gamma package into if you resolve Gamma during your turn, going second, or just need removal. Blackluster Soldier Link, it's great against control decks. You can give him his boost of having a level 7 or higher by making him with like a Maximus or a Fleur-de-Lis. And Exterio and Dragon Master Knight, dual purpose. Dragon Master Knight is just for a really high attack for Dogmatica punishment, because 5,000 attack lets punishment out most things in the game. And Exterio, the levels on these are important because Nekroz Kaleidoscope, which allows you to ritual summon Nekroz monsters by sending 1 monster from the extra deck to the grave, it allows you to ritual summon multiple monsters at the same time whose levels equal the sum. So with Exterio and Dragon Master Knight, you can do things like summon Unicorn and Bryonic at the same time. Like Exterio, for example, who's level 10, you can summon 4 and 6 at the same time just by dumping him. It never came up, ever, because I was banishing this off Prosperity every single time I saw Prosperity for 6. But it's just there as an option. You know, you'd rather have the slots you use for Prosperity potentially have some use somewhere, rather than just be random stuff you've thrown in. Then for the meat and potatoes of the extra deck, 2 Natis. These are useful for Nadir, Punishment, and White Knight sending. So if White Knight, say during your opponent's turn, they're trying to set up a combo, White Knight, send Natis, send one of their extra deck pieces, and then pop something. Skull Knight is essentially the 3rd Natis, but I like the versatility of this, being able to choose when you want to pop something, because you might want to use White Knight early during their turn to rip out a key combo piece, but you don't want to pop with Natis at the same time, so you can send this and then during your turn, you know, pop whatever they make. The aforementioned Titanic Lad, it's for sending off of the Dogmatica Ritual spell to get access to Ecclesia and Fleur. 3 Herald of the Arclight. This card in this deck is nuts. You can, like I said, send this off Nadir to set up the White Knight engine, and if you've already got access to Ecclesia or something, you can send the Ecclesia that you already have in hand can get the ritual spell, so the Herald of the Arclight could instead get access to any of your Nekroz cards. You can send this off of White Knight, so during your opponent's turn you can search Trish or Velk for protection or just follow up. It has so many uses. Like, you will turbo through these so quickly in this deck. You got to be careful with them, and that's why Mega's in here, just as a good 8 to shuffle back, keep your extra deck shuffling going turn after turn, and then win Pegasus just as something good to punish your opponent. This was really important against the Gren Marju matchup, because I ended up having to ritual summon Unicorn in defense, and then when he ran it over by battle, when Pegasus was able to shuffle back his Gren Marju, he had no cards in hand and no cards on field, and then just top decks Desires and pulled Gren Marju and Eater of Millions off the top. So it was just one of those cases where he just had the out. Well played to him. And then finally, moving on to the side deck, I threw this together very last minute, so it is far from refined, and I'll touch on what I'd change. Pancratops, wouldn't change that. It's Pancratops. It's one of the best side deck cards in existence. There's a reason it's limited. 3 Denko Sekka. This is really good against you know, back row control matchups because you don't use your normal summon. Like, you don't, if I had Ecclesia and Denko in hand against a control matchup, I'd rather summon the Denko every day of the week to turn their back row off, and then I could summon Ecclesia next turn, or if they're a control deck that might put an extra deck monster out, like Sky Striker, Ecclesia can just summon herself anyway. So I'd definitely keep her in. She was really good. 3 Forbidden Droplet. This was just as an answer to, you know, Drytron build-a-board type decks. I cited this in when I played Drytron, but didn't see it. Probably keep it in. Dunno, on the fence about it. Evenly matched, again, another thing for the control matchup, just to out back row, because this deck doesn't really do one-for-one trades too well. Like, if you're going second and you set up a Unicorn and they like Torrential it or something, you can't really recover as easily from that because all your ritual spells are once per turn. So you'd rather just try and blow out all the back row as hard as you can, then establish the board. For going first, Solemn Judgment. This was for siding out for the Gamma package going first if I was against a more control-based matchup or a deck where I didn't think my opponent would be on hand traps, or, you know, just didn't think the Gamma would be as worthwhile. And then lastly, 2 more punishments for the control matchups again. If I was going first against a control, take out the Gamma package, put in the Judgments and the 2 punishments, and probably, you know, could drop the Imperial Order or maybe a Unicorn or something if it wasn't strong in that matchup. I missed not having more hand traps in this deck. I found when I was going second, I did struggle quite a bit, more so than I thought that I would. So going forth, I'd probably actually cut the Gamma package, Imperial Order, because that's 5, and maybe the Rota, because all day I don't actually, I've yet to actually summon Nekroz Dogmatika, or search or use Shuret, so I could probably cut definitely Rota, because Klaus and Shuret are still searchable with Prionic. So the Gamma package, Order, and Rota is 6, which would probably allow me to main deck like a set of Imperms and a set of Ashes, which I think are more versatile and have better broad matchups, especially at my locals where there's a lot of control-based stuff. But it was definitely fun to try this deck out. I wanted to play it because I picked up a Nekroz core quite cheap recently, somebody, and just, I've always liked Dogma. I mean, you've seen on this channel before that I've been summoning Ecclesia since the day she came out and tried every single variant under the sun of Invoke Dogma, Shadol, you know, you name it, I've played it, sort of thing. But yeah, that's the profile that I took. I'm not going to be playing it again, unfortunately. I really would like to take this deck to another event, refine it, and do better, but I have decided to sell the deck, just because I think I just have too many other decks that I want to work on at the moment. I've got some really fun rogue strategies coming in the future. I've got a new Dark Magician deck profile coming too that I think is actually probably the most competitive variant you'll see, and it's not just casual bait that's, you know, filled with all the good anime type cards. And yeah, it's kind of about it really. Enjoy the event. I'm struggling a bit with Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment too, in the sense that with all the COVID restrictions and us not having bigger events, it has been difficult to find interest to stay in the game sometimes. Like the Back to Duel series was good, and I enjoyed the first series with the Dragon Retrains as the mats, but I was disappointed the second series put all 3 mats on Evil Twin, because the Drytron or Magistus mat would have been nice too. So who knows? I mean, we've got the remote duel YCS this weekend that, as of the time of filming this video, I'm not quite sure when it'll be uploaded, hopefully just after that event. But yeah, let us know in the comments, what are you playing at the moment? Got any fancy deck ideas or crazy strategies for us to try out? Have you played Nekroz Dogmatika? Love reading your comments, love interacting with you guys. And if you are new here, or you watch all our videos and aren't subscribed, do please consider subscribing. I mean, it's free, you can unsubscribe anytime if you like, but it just helps us grow the channel out, because we do really want to get some growth back going again, since we've been stagnant for a while. There will hopefully be at least weekly uploads coming forth from here. I really want to do weekly uploads, but the logistics of that, just with how busy life is at the moment, may or may not happen, but I'll try and keep you guys posted as much as I can. So yeah, remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell if you do, and yeah, we'd love to see you, and thanks.